Sorry, I get worked up about the luge. I'm a real lugie.
It's the liker, isn't it?
Welcome back to Come and Brew It Radio, coming to you from Texas Brewing Inc. in Haltom City, Texas. You can find us on the web at txbrewing.com, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and share with your friends.
In this episode, we're going to start some new short segments, get into our second Malt-o-Rama topic with a focus on wheat malts, because there's often some confusion between what's available, what's in a recipe, and what people really want when using wheat. Then we continue our making plans for Nigel discussion by answering more of the questions we had on our list from the last time. Plus, be sure to listen in for our new weekly coupon codes after every break.
Before we get started, please be sure to check out our Patreon account to help support the show. Every little bit counts, and if you visit patreon.com/comeandbrewradio, we have a variety of options for you to help keep the show going, get involved, and improve it. And starting soon, at the end of each month, we'll be doing a product giveaway for all our $5, $10, and $20 patrons.
Woohoo!
Yeah, so a little extra benefit,
man.
guys.
I thought you were going to turn into the micro machine guy.
Do you like
for
that?
A minute.
Well, you know, you do the intro 3 times in a row, and eventually it just loses its magic.
What? Losing its magic?
It loses its magic.
I thought we were talking terms and conditions on a mortgage.
You know, after 3 years, you would think we'd have all the technical difficulty shit worked out.
I
but
do
No.
think that, yes. That
But
is what
You
I
would think that, but you're using
every
Macs.
week, something changes. Something does something different.
Something new,
Gremlin.
something
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, it's typically not the Mac. It's usually Facebook or some other kind of bullshit.
That's part of the contract. You have to blame someone else.
And I'll also say it would help if I could hear myself during the intro too, because the music is very, very loud.
Was it very, very
It
loud?
was
Very,
loud.
very loud.
Well, we're trying to break in a new producer, you know.
Yeah, blame it on the new
Well,
producer.
that's what you were doing in there with
That's
him.
what I'm blaming
Breaking
it
him
on.
in.
We were like, why is he in his lap?
We thought you were
It's like
doing.
he's in his
breaking him
lap.
in.
Oh my
We thought you were
God.
doing the doubles luge.
Come tell Papa what's wrong with the system.
Man, this is just really gone the wrong way already.
Well, you know,
I don't know. We haven't even drank that much yet, so.
I had a big old margarita before I came today.
Did you?
So, yeah.
I had about 3
Okay.
pints before I left the house.
Well, there you go.
Game on.
Pre-gaming, baby.
Pre-gaming, yeah.
It's good because we have a lot of content.
Yeah, we
tonight.
do.
A lot of things to get to, a lot of good
Lots of content.
discussions. So,
Yeah, so all you guys out in the Facebook world, y'all make sure to ask questions if you have any comments or of
make
course,
comments if you have any questions.
Yeah, that's the most important part. Right
especially if it's relative to our topic.
And even better if
there.
it's
Please
not.
be relative.
Anyhow, what do we got tonight, guys?
Well, to
Recent
start off
happenings?
with, yes, the recent happenings. Stone Brewing sues Miller Coors for labeling Keystone Stone on the cans and cases.
So Keystone,
Keystone is now
suing?
Stone.
No, no, no.
apparently,
Stone.
by-
Stone Brewing
Is
is
suing
Miller
Keystone.
Coors.
Sewing Miller Coors, yeah.
Oh,
It's easy to confuse because of the naming and all.
Oh,
you know.
Yeah,
okay.
Right.
You'd think with a simple Google search or walking down a liquor store aisle, they would notice that, hey, there's someone who's known as Stone Brewing. Maybe this was a bad idea, but, you know, that's way above
Well,
someone
you know,
who's in the
Keystone-
But
corporate
isn't-
brewing, maybe.
But isn't
Keystone was
Keystone a bad
around
idea
for-
anyway?
well, that's a
Yes.
good point. Yeah,
Keystone
there's a
was
lot
around
of
for
bad
a lot
decisions.
longer.
Yeah, but you know what? They used to call them rocks. They used
Yeah,
to.
rocks.
It was a box of rocks, and it was rocks
It was
this and
Key
rocks
Rocks?
that. Now
Key
it's
Rocks?
stones.
It was Key Rocks.
No, like their
And
their,
Keith
their 30-pack
Stone.
was a box of rocks.
Yeah, a
And
box of rocks.
Now they call it stones. And it used to say Keystone. Now it says Key, and then the word Stone
Real
is
big.
entirely along the side of the can, all
Well,
by
they could
itself.
they could just change it to Keystoner.
Keystoner, yeah, that would be even better.
Yeah, because stoners don't know what they're tasting anymore.
More like kidney stone.
I have such mixed emotions on this one, and mostly because I watched with Greg Koch. Is it Greg Koch?
Koch.
Is that you
No.
pronounce
Is it
Koch?
Koch? Koch.
Koch,
I think
I
he's
watched
Koch,
his video
not
on
Cook.
YouTube or
I
whatever.
thought he owned Stone. I mean,
No,
in-
that's
he owns
Jim
Sam Adams,
Cook.
dude.
that's
Cook.
That's Jim
Right.
Cook.
Jim
Cook.
Cook. Jim
Yeah.
Cook.
Not-
yeah.
and then this is
Greg
Koch, I think. Yeah.
Same spelling, different name.
And it's like the douchebaggery out of him is so extreme that it actually makes me not want to support his argument, even though I agree with what he's saying.
Right.
But I think it's just done in such a way that they thought, well, how can we cash in on this beer nerd rage that seems to be the thing lately? And I don't know, man.
Is it just you think another attempt to take a swipe at the big boys just to keep their names in the press? And
I think it's a way to make them look as though they're on the side of all of us that are trying
See,
to.
I think that's right there. That's the point that
Yeah.
I have a problem with is the fact that it's like there's a lot of pretentiousness in Stone, especially when you go to the
Yes,
brewery.
yes.
When you can buy the IPA there for $8 in a pint, and you can buy a 22 ounce at the store for $8
Now-
or so. You know,
Now, of course, we don't know all the background. They may have had people say to them, "Hey, I bought what I thought was your beer, but wasn't your beer."
it could happen.
You know,
Yeah.
and so they may
Maybe.
have got for some feedback like
There's
that.
some dumb
but-
people out there, so
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
it could
Or
happen.
people who just don't involve themselves to find out. They know they like beer, and that's about it. And they don't
Right.
care to find out. And I can see the average consumer is probably falls into
Well,
that type of a category. I
Dude,
think.
I totally support the idea of what they're doing. I love make the big company throw their money away as much as possible
Right.
because it's taking money away from other avenues that they're putting it into that are doing harm to the craft industry, obviously. I like that. I like the fact that they can take a shot because they're big enough to take a shot and then possibly could make something happen.
And I think he has a legitimate point.
There's
too.
a lot I don't like about, specifically the owner of and then some of the bullshit that Stone gets away with, but they make some great beer. They always have. They hopefully continue doing that. And the argument, not exactly weak, but not exactly strong.
I
You
got
know
a
what I'm
bone
saying?
to pick with Stone. When you go to their bistro, a damn airplane flies over every
No
5
shit,
minutes.
dude. You like to having a conversation. This is
You know what though? That's being at the coast in California. That's
Yeah.
just everywhere you go. That's what it is.
So I didn't see his video, but is it basically the copyright infringement using the name Stone?
name usage, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
obfuscation. It's intentionally creating confusion amongst the average
Between
confuser.
brands.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Which it would be hard to argue against being a national brand with a large corporate backing and a large, assumed to be large legal department and marketing department, not knowing that there's another brand out there that's using the name
That's
Stone as their
a rather
primary
large
leading-
brand, actually, nationally, and internationally at this point.
And
so.
and the thing he says that I agree with, he says in the world of beer, the word Stone belongs to us.
It does.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
on their packaging, the word Stone is separated. It's the largest word. If you hold the can up, it takes up the entire side of it.
It
You
does.
can't see the key.
Yeah.
So I do think he has a point.
He does.
Absolutely.
I don't need this 7-minute hipster douchebag
Diatribe.
rant where he's like, this is the part where I should do a slow motion spit take with Keystone beer, but I'm not going to do that. And then he does it. And then he does it.
I'll save that for later.
so
It's just the whole thing rubs me the wrong way.
do you think it's also
Which he
down-
normally likes, but not tonight.
Do you think it's also
Exactly.
down to he doesn't want the association as well from his beer to Keystone Light?
Absolutely, you would not.
I
Right.
think that's the premise.
Do you
Right.
think there'd really be any confusion?
No,
I mean,
None of
But
their beers
no,
match
not for
anything.
most people.
Well, I think it depends. I don't know. It's hard for me to put myself in the shoes of the average beer consumer because we are so geeked out about everything.
Right, sure.
To us, it's an obvious thing. Of course,
They
you
would
wouldn't
not
think
even
that
be
that
in the
is
same section in the grocery store if any grocery store put them even anywhere.
Yeah, they
near.
won't be
Right.
exactly
Like,
close to each other. That's for
I
damn
drank
sure.
too much Keystone Light and fell into a campfire 15 years before Stone ever existed.
Yeah.
So I know damn well what Keystone Light is. But,
yeah.
we have people that are winning gold medals in the Olympics that were born in 2000.
Yeah.
Right.
So, they weren't around. They've been alive the entire time Stone has been
But
around.
what about
And
Keith Stone?
Keith Stone.
And that's why I think
he's
this
the
is all
real
born.
victim in this
I'm
whole
sorry.
thing.
I
Actually,
might be
yeah.
a little too young for that conversation. Who's Keith Stone?
Oh,
See,
he's like-
exactly.
That's even
Exactly.
more
Wow.
recent, but yeah.
that was pretty
Yeah.
recent.
I
He was
don't
like-
think that's as recent as you think it was.
I'm sorry, I haven't had a television subscription in a number of years.
It's been at least 10 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Where-
Seems
where
like
he-
it was more recent than that.
He had the mullet
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the cutoffs. Or
They
the,
brought it back around or something. Either way, it's Keystone. Everybody knows Keystone. I mean, I don't think it's like it's the watery, easier, cheaper version of Coors Light, more or less.
I think
Really,
it's
you
pretty
know.
much the same shit in the same.
Yeah.
It's meant to be
Yeah.
pounded and crushed.
Yeah, exactly. Tall cans.
crushable,
That
yeah.
was
Yeah.
it. Tall cans of Keystone. That's what you got, and that was your pregame warmer for going to the bar in college. And
I remember when
high
I was
school.
young, their advertising was that they had a plastic liner in the can so that out of the can it tasted like draft. Was what
Or
it
like
was,
a
yeah.
bottle.
Like you couldn't taste the can. Unbeknownst to all of us that all cans have a plastic liner in
Yeah.
them. They always have.
Spray it.
Cold
you know,
filtered
yeah.
and cold lagered, Brandon.
Yeah, it's cold lagered and triple hopped. Yeah. So we'll see. I don't know. I'll be surprised if they win. Those kind of
Frost
things
brewed.
are difficult.
Well, that'll
to
just
win.
tie them up for a long time more
Yeah.
than anything.
Well,
And they'll
They're
change the
likely to
branding
settle out of
anytime.
court before.
They only keep it the same for a few years. I mean,
That's
Well,
true. Yeah.
Ultimately, here's the thing. I think it's kind of dumb, but evidently those guys have plenty of money in order to, in order to really think that they even want to pursue that.
Wasn't
'Cause
it
it's
a
gonna
year
cost
ago
a
that
lot.
they laid off a bunch of people
Yeah.
after they opened up the Berlin facility? They laid off a
Like
pretty large
200
amount of
people,
people.
I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
But why the hell are they?
So if I
trying
was
to
one of those people and I saw that, I wouldn't be real happy about that.
right? I think they were one of the first big breweries that really
Yeah.
laid some people off.
And I think if I was one of those people, I'd think, I'd rather have my job and a few people get confused that Keystone might be a Stone product.
right. And buy more of your beer by accident.
Well, it'd be different if Stone can make a good lager, right?
Or if Stone offered their beer for $12 for an 18-pack. There you go.
Right. There's
Yeah.
There's the whole. That's the real problem with that company. Especially for that IPA, man. Oh, when you go to and sit in the bar in the brewery itself, and they charge you the price that they
That's
do. for
airport prices, dude.
That is
Yeah.
ridiculous, man. I was like, are you seriously charging me this much for just your IPA that you make here?
And you only got one?
Yeah, just the one.
You paid $8 for one
Like
beer
I say, I'm getting
at a
one more
brewery?
beer, and it's gonna be something really weird that I can't get anywhere else. That's the only other thing. Then we're getting the hell out of here. It's a beautiful place. It is fantastic. And so is the bistro.
Yeah.
So I don't know. All right. So next topic though. This is a fun one.
Axe
it's recent.
throwing and beer drinking.
Axe throwing and beer drinking. It's a recently we were come to know that there's a new company open up here in town. It's apparently it's national. A new sport. The Canadians apparently love as well. That it's come down
I thought
here.
it was more of a Scandinavian thing.
I have no
Drinking
idea.
and
I
axe
saw
throwing.
Canada.
No, they said that this kind of thing had been
Yeah.
going on in Canada for a while, these axe
So-
throwing parlors.
axe throwing place to go hang out and throw axes down an alley.
So
So,
you
it's
can go-
bowling with axes, more or
I mean,
less, and with or
So you can
darts
go-
with axes.
So you can go and throw an axe and then meet a battle axe, right?
Yeah.
Probably.
It could. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen videos of this activity happening for a long while on Facebook mostly.
Right.
because People like to post things. This is viral. This is interesting, and then they tell you nothing about what's going on other than it's happening.
Well,
Right.
in this case, Martin House posted a video, and Martin House, we've had Cody on here a couple of times. They're one of our great local breweries. I think Martin
Yep.
House is just a fantastic
Go
brewery.
see 'em.
They do all kinds of wild beers, and they do a really good job with them.
Successfully.
The thing
yeah.
about them is that they really brew a lot of high gravity beers. And if you go to the tour at Martin House, there's a lot of people that go there to just get smashed. And it's a wild
Seems
tour.
reasonable.
And right across the parking lot after the tour,
Go
you can now
over.
walk over and throw axes.
Yep.
Sounds awesome. I'm gonna have to take my girlfriend to do it. When she
So
gets in
I
town.
think we should start a pool or maybe a couple of pools on how long it takes before someone loses a toe or a finger or kills an instructor.
or a random other person.
Yeah.
a death pool.
A death pool.
But it does
Well,
sound
it could
fun.
be a dismemberment pool too. But
I'll have
two
to say it
separate
sounds
pools.
fun. I would
Maine.
go. I'd be happy to go do it. We should do it as a group. We should
Yeah.
all go together
Right.
on a
Let's
night
do
to
a
do
mini
this as a
remote,
group.
Maybe.
Yeah,
we could
and
do
get
it
some
right
filming.
after we get done here. I
There
think
you
that'd be a
go.
great
There you
idea.
go. Are they open? We'll have to find out what it. What's the company name? That's the only thing I didn't have written down
Stand
here.
by.
But
Let's go throw
they're
axes.
right across from Martin House there in Fort Worth. They're
Axes
obviously
is-
the only people doing it. I think in DFW.
Hey, it's only a street
Yeah.
over from us, man.
Yeah.
But when I posted this to our little group chat, I think it was Greg answered back with an article about this is popping up all over the country.
Yeah.
In other places, they actually have a bar in the axe throwing establishment. So
Oh, I thought
Yes.
that's what this was.
no, this
No,
is just
this
right
is
across the street
road.
from Martin House, and they're offering you a
Oh.
20% discount if you go there after the tour.
Oh, there's no beer there?
No,
Well,
Flying
screw
the
that.
the
I'm
beer
not
is
going
right
there.
across the parking lot.
I think it might be BYOB though.
Oh,
Possibly.
Okay.
Possibly.
Yeah, but
Bring your own
Don't quote me
Band-Aids.
on that.
Yeah,
yeah, there are several around the country with their own bars inside. They may only sell cans and bottles as opposed.
Because
to
I mean,
anything
really, if you think
draft,
axe
but-
throwing, it's really more of like a hard liquor sport. Come on,
I
seriously,
agree.
it's
Who would
it's
do
like
this
you want to
without
drink
drinking
hard
whiskey?
liquor, you take a shot, throw an axe. I mean, that's
Now,
grow some hair
admittedly,
on your chest. Come on.
Probably half the times in my life I've thrown an axe, I had been drinking.
Yeah.
Probably.
There you
No,
go.
but
So you qualify.
That doesn't mean it's a good idea.
It's more of a hatchet than
So
an
I just
axe,
Googled-
Well, it is a hatchet, yes.
I just googled axe throwing Fort Worth, and it comes up with Dallas axe throwing in Richardson.
If you scroll down from there,
wow.
you get the article that links you to
That's
flyingaxefactory.com.
there you go.
There you go.
And they're open until 10 p.m. tonight.
Oh,
Well, we're never going to make
We're gonna have
that.
to cut this short.
I was going to say, are we done?
Yeah, it's a
Saturday
wheat
it
malt.
is.
How about that, huh?
It's good.
And so those were good questions. See y'all. Have a good time.
So
And we've just made plans for me. We're going axe throwing.
that's right.
All right, let's go.
We're gonna go throw axes at Nigel.
No.
And
No, with
No.
Nigel. With Nigel.
With.
damn.
It's a subtle difference.
Somebody's over here trying to wave us off.
No, I'm just saying y'all are all talking over each other. Nobody can see what the hell you're saying. But anyway,
It's all
I
about
digress.
axes.
All about the axe.
So the next one is probably
Nobody asked you.
the most brewing related topic that we have in our recent happenings, and this is one I really like actually. The National Homebrew Competition (NHC) is going to start using a new score sheet this year. So if you've judged competitions before, normally you're going to get the AHA score sheet where you've got your categories and some lines below them to write comments and a little space out to the right to write a score. And then there's some check boxes on the side for off flavors and some check boxes on the bottom for, was it a good example of the style and would you drink more and that kind of thing. The new ones still include all of that were there before, but instead of having to write everything out, it gives you some pre-written checkbox areas next to the descriptor part that allow you to just put a check basically for the level of what you're smelling or tasting or whatever,
Scales,
without
right.
having to write it out and that kind of thing, which I really, really like. The other alternative is at times they've used these checkbox score sheets where there is no writing. You're just checking boxes.
I don't like that one as
And
much.
I don't like that at all. I don't think it provides any real valuable feedback for the brewer at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a good happy medium. I don't write by hand very much anymore. I absolutely hate writing by hand, actually.
Right, yeah.
And it's one of the things that I don't like about filling out score sheets is, really there's a lot of stuff you're supposed to be writing. If you're filling it out correctly, you should really be filling up all of the lines that are on that sheet. If you're addressing all of the things that need to be addressed and giving a level that you perceive and all that stuff. So I think this is really cool.
Yeah, I think everything that they have here, they're talking about scales for aroma, appearance, flavor, mouthfeel, so you can reduce time overall. Allows you to freeform descriptive language usage as far as what space there is. Inappropriate checkboxes so that you can quickly go straight to a problem like that.
I
I
like
think
that a
that's,
lot,
that's,
too.
I
Yeah.
think a big deal right there, actually.
I think that's one of the things on score sheets that you get back. Sometimes you get back comments and you think, well, it's supposed to be like that. When the guy is writing something that's supposed to be there, but it's written in a way that like he maybe thought it wasn't supposed to be there. So this
Right.
lets you differentiate. I wrote this because it's inappropriate, or I wrote this because it's appropriate to style. There's checkboxes there that let you do that. And I think it'll just remind the judges to make that designation. And I think really that the brewers are going to get more valuable feedback off of these score
right.
I'm
sheets.
going to agree with you there, mostly because I judged for the first time last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it for local competition
The
judging.
Blue Bonnet Brew Off.
Blue Bonnet. Don't want to toot my own horn there. First time judging. But it was judging things that I wasn't incredibly familiar with, but I was paired with a professional judge, and I was reading the guidelines and tasting things as I went along. So it was, this tastes appropriate, and put it in there, but this didn't taste appropriate by what the guideline says. So this sounds to me like it takes a clear note for what should and shouldn't be there.
Exactly.
It reminds you to hit on certain notes, too,
Yeah.
because that's one of the things I see some score sheets people get back that are just so poorly filled out.
Oh, yeah.
That
So last year they used a different format to what the typical BJCP judging sheet is.
yeah, they use the little checkbox ones, right?
Last year they did, yes.
They've done that for several years, haven't they? That's typical of that conversation.
Right. So a couple of my entries, I came back with a few boxes checked and 2 words.
right.
No other comments, no other advice, no other feedback, just 2 words.
Right.
You know,
And if you get a score that you don't understand or that you don't agree with,
tough luck.
yeah, you can't figure out why.
Right. And see, this is something like recently Nigel had a score sheet that we discussed, and another thing that says that there's a flaws for style section, which actually makes you point out what the flaws were that you found when you gave a score a certain way, when you describe it. Like I've seen a lot of descriptions that say this has all of these things that are appropriate. And then maybe one word that says something about what the flaw might have been that's not quite clear, you know, but instead to actually make you point out what a flaw for style would be. I like that because that's really telling you what the problem was.
Yeah.
You know, so
that really points to something that you may have done wrong in your either brewing or the bottling or
'cause
the aging process.
all too often it is just the few words descripting descriptors of like saying things like it's got key point, problem. Wait a minute. What do you mean by this is actually part of the description, but why is this a problem? You don't tell me anything about that. So maybe that's a flaws for style thing that would be really good to hear, you know, for a new brewer especially.
So the AHA is using a completely different sheet than the BJCP sheet. So what you're saying?
I'm hoping to see this thing transfer over.
It's really just an adaptation of the BJCP sheet
Sounds like
because
it,
it doesn't cut anything out of it. I think it actually gives you the ability to give more information in less time with less work.
And it sounds like they're wanting to possibly adopt this eventually.
I think it's going to be great.
Based on what James was saying about them having conversations in the higher level of BJCP judging.
Yeah, and I wish we could try this out at Blue Bonnet. I'm going to judge some Blue Bonnet tomorrow. I'd love to be able to sit down with these sheets and give it a try. So
I need to do that again. I miss judging it. Anyway,
it's been so long since I judged.
I know.
It was a lot of fun last
I'll
week.
be brewing tomorrow.
It's great.
Again?
I love it. Yeah.
I don't judge anymore.
Again.
I'm really judgmental.
Well, that's for sure.
But I've got this fine homebrew store that I'm going to work in tomorrow to
Oh,
keep
yeah?
them successful.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's so
yeah.
hard to find a good homebrew store.
Damn,
I know those assholes you're talking about.
Yeah. I'm going to try and raise the standard slightly tomorrow.
You always will.
No, I'm going to
Cheers.
stay home.
Oh. All right, so moving forward, we have another new segment we wanted to start hitting up on and talking about like some of the beer work that we've done during the week. Just the kind of stuff that like us as a group that we do, you know, if anybody has some things to throw out there. I can start off by saying I've brewed a Russian Imperial Stout and a double IPA this week, brew in the bag versions.
If I'm not
kind of
mistaken,
effed
you
it up a
brewed
little
on
bit.
Valentine's like I did, didn't you?
I
Yeah,
did.
me too.
Yeah,
That
I
means
did.
we have the coolest wives.
Yeah, we do.
We
Or
do.
And
significant others.
No,
Yeah.
she is officially wife now.
It's been 10 years.
No, it's been 9 years as of Wednesday, actually. I brewed on our anniversary. Not only is it Valentine's Day, it's our anniversary. That's how super cool she is.
Now, by
Nice.
Texas law,
we might
you
be
have to
moving
have-
into you're a dick territory there.
Now,
There are some things better left unsaid, you know?
we looked this up recently with a group of friends and I. Have you referred to each other as husband and wife?
Well, we actually have signed paperwork to say that it is.
So
Okay.
you're married?
Oh, well,
Yeah,
congratulations.
You are actually married.
Yeah,
Okay.
for legal reasons, that was required.
Yeah,
Okay.
that
That's
was
really
funny.
romantic, dude.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
I know
getting
it.
teary-eyed here. That's some Nicholas
All right.
Sparks shit going on
Well,
over
there
there,
you
dude.
You can't just rush things.
This
you
isn't
know?
the notebook, it's the scratch pad.
There you go.
The sticky note, dude.
Do you know what's good about it?
Blushing.
She could be listening.
Yeah?
Yeah, she
Well,
might
in
be.
that
Well,
case, never
fluttery.
mind, Nigel. That is...
Congratulations.
It's every woman's dream.
Mazel
I
tov.
thought so. Hey, I brought her dinner before I came out tonight.
Well, there you go.
You know.
Oh, man.
No, I get to brew on Valentine's Day because my anniversary is 5 days before that, so we just don't do Valentine's Day because we do something for our anniversary instead, so I get lucky.
We just don't really.
Just 5
Valentine's
days
Day is
early.
just a corporate holiday.
It is so
It's
stupid. It's so
bullshit,
stupid.
so-
Yeah, yeah.
And it was an open night that was a good night for me to try to get some brewing in that I hadn't gotten a chance to do, so I took care
Well,
of
you
that.
know, this is my new thing is brewing on weeknights now. It's so much easier for me to find time on a weeknight than it is on weekends.
I'm with you on that.
I'm
getting in that
liking it,
mode
yeah.
now.
See,
Unfortunately, I started at 4 and ended at midnight because I had some
Yeah, that
problems.
sucks.
Wow.
But, yeah.
I also had problems, but I brewed on last Sunday. I tried to do a modified version of one of our kits in the store, and it came out great, except for my brewing equipment failing on me.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That
exactly
sucks.
what Grainfather called for in their possible recall.
Oh.
Oh, where where you didn't have the cord
Fried,
plugged in
huh?
all the way?
The cord was plugged in all the way, but the circuit failed on me halfway through the boil.
And so what does that do?
Well, it only got about half the boil done.
So no worky anymore?
The Connect controller is not working correctly anymore, but the original controller still works fine, and iMake is already working on getting me a new controller.
How many is that you've
Good
broken
deal.
now?
I've heard their
Two?
customer service is really excellent.
It's
I've
really
not
excellent.
heard anybody complain
It
about
has
it at all.
never
Yeah,
taken
they
more
are.
than 24 hours to get back to me for anything, and that's great for emailing any company, really.
Yeah.
And they already said, as soon as we have a new one made for you, we're going to send it to you.
Well,
But the beer's still good.
Here's a question from Facebook. I think it's really important that we get it in here real quick. James Trimble says, did you have to marry to become legal?
Oh, how did we
Ice
miss
wa-
that one?
I thought we were done.
Ice
making
was going to
fun of
show
this
up,
part.
huh? That's-
What would James like the answer to be? Because I can make any shit up for James.
We want the truth.
Can we hear
no.
the truth?
No,
No.
no, I'm not
No.
gonna
He's
say the
offended.
truth.
No, the truth is I've been legal ever since I walked in the door.
There you go.
I thought you
James,
were, yeah.
however, I've got doubts about.
He is a little pale.
Yeah,
He turned that around there. That was a nice job.
thank you. But I brewed on Wednesday too, as I said, and I also had equipment failure.
Oh, yeah?
My thermometer failed on me,
Hmm.
and my mash temperature read anything from 36 to 178 degrees.
Man, you guys got to quit buying
digital?
crap at Northern Brewer.
No,
It's a digital.
yeah, it's actually my my barbecue thermometer. It's got
Mhm. Yeah, I use
well,
one of
there's
those.
problem
Yeah,
right
it's
there.
got a, no, actually, it's got a nice long probe on it. It sits down into the mash steady, and gives plenty. It's been reliable.
I
It gives
used
me
one of
good
those for
reading.
a
You
long
just
time.
described
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
Valentine's Day.
There you go.
I was mashing and probing all night long.
And so,
Did your probe fail?
Oh no, equipment failure was not a problem at all.
and
This
so, I had to use a backup, which hasn't proved overly reliable. But I think we're good. Mash temperature was. I mean, in theory, I followed every step as I always do. So in theory, the mash temperature was fine. It was just a case of, let's face it, the thermometer's just confirmation, right? And
Yeah.
I couldn't get that this time out.
I've found that my digital thermometer doesn't have a low battery indicator. The low battery indicator is that the
It screws
temperature
up.
reads wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
So I did replace batteries, but of course you scramble through the crap drawer until
Yeah,
you find
yeah.
two, and you never know if they're any good or not. So I think
Right.
I
You
think
need
that's
a
all.
battery drawer.
That's right.
I-
Just to put all the low-powered batteries.
It's an
in.
American thing.
I also had a
You
secondary
have a shit ton of
failure
AAA.
in mine, but more out of process than anything else. I forgot to put an airlock on my flask for doing my starter, so my topper ended up across the room.
So you sealed it?
I put a sealed, non-drilled stopper on top instead of a drilled topper with an airlock.
So you made your starter when you were hammered?
Maybe.
Yeah.
And that leads us to Stubby's tip. So the tip for you today is when you make a starter, do not put a stopper in a flask. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't recommend anybody to even use a lot of people sell those foam stoppers. I don't think that's a great idea either. Only
No,
reason
I
I
don't
say
like
that is
those,
because when
yeah.
they get moisture, they can grow mold in those
They
things.
get a
Yeah.
little crusty once you use them a
Yeah.
couple
And
times.
so
Yeah.
what I would recommend, this is my tip for today, is actually to put tinfoil over the top of it.
Amen.
Well,
I
that's
do.
what I do. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
just
I've
let
got
it
one
set.
at home right now.
Just let it sit loosely on the top, and then that way. The only thing I think a lot of times people don't understand this is that bacteria can't go in and up and in something. I think like a lot of times the guys get frustrated. They're like, I don't know if my bucket's sealing correctly. What, dude? As long as you got it on there, it's
pretty
Good to go, yeah.
Even if you just set it on there,
Also, if you've got positive pressure
Yeah.
too,
So
which
you're not
do,
gonna have
so.
to you're not gonna have to worry about that. So just put something loosely, and you also need some gas exchange.
You do.
That's
yeah.
part of the.
That's
part
the
of
main reason you're doing that is to get
Right.
oxygen in there and get growth going. Yeah.
And you want the CO2 to come out and the oxygen to go in. So that's part of the reasons, as well as having your yeast in suspension. That's the whole reason you want to put it on a stir plate.
That's a great.
Not to
tip,
mention
Stubby.
that
And that's the
best
tip,
one.
and
That-
just the tip.
That's the best one yet.
Just as
Yeah,
good from
that's
Stubby.
right. It was the best one. Yeah.
So,
So I
that's gonna
tried
be a-
something new that I've been wanting to try for a while.
Was
when
it
I brewed
Stubby's
this
tip?
week. It was not Stubby's tip. No. I've been familiar with that tip for a long time.
well,
No,
it all comes out.
we had been talking about brew in a bag stuff and
Yeah.
the new purpose built bags that you have for that, as opposed to paint strainer bags and stuff people were using before. And I had brewed with a guy that had used a mesh bag like that as the false bottom in his cooler mash tun. And so I have an issue that the holes in my sparge arm are real small, and so if I get grain particles that get into that when I'm recirculating or anything, it clogs them up and it creates problems for me. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to put a grain bag in my mash tun on top of my false bottom. It's just in addition to what I always use, and see if that helps. And also it should make it easier when I'm pulling my grains out
Right.
when I'm done. And man, I really liked it. I thought it worked great. It was what, $12 for the big bag that fits in the 16-gallon mash tun. It fit right in there. It sit nicely right on the false bottom. I had very, very little particulate when I was recirculating, a lot less than I normally have. And then when I was done, I was able to just pull that bag out and go set it by the trash can, let it drain a little bit. It took me 10 seconds to clean it out when I was
Yeah.
done. I turned it inside out, sprayed through it with a hose.
That's the one with the handles.
Did it
right?
not
The one with
affect-
the 4 handles, yeah.
Did it not affect your efficiency at all?
No, not at all. In fact, I actually got a little bit better efficiency than I should have.
Yeah, it shouldn't.
Because I couldn't get my pH right, and I should have had terrible efficiency, but I had
Right on.
real good efficiency.
I
So
had to,
Cleanup was good.
cleanup was easier than normal, yeah.
Cool.
I've had the same thing in the same situation go on in the typical 3-vessel process wherever you
Mhm.
put it out there. I used to use a bazooka tube underneath the false bottom.
I used to
And
have
I
one
kept
of those
finding
in the back of my car.
all the damn time that shit would just clog up, man, with all the most finest particles
Yeah,
and whatnot. And
yeah.
then I would just have a slow pull, and that's, you know.
I've
So
done
I was
some-
really happy with that. I'm going to keep doing it that way, and I think it's going to solve a few problems for me, as well as just kind of make the brew day easier. When I'm working
It's
by
worth it.
myself and I've got a mash tun with, 17, 18 pounds of grain and however much
That's
water
weak.
is left in it, it's heavy and it's hard to handle, and this made it easier.
Why
so.
don't you just fix your sparge arm?
There is that.
Because I the reason the holes are small like that is so I get even distribution all the way
Yeah.
throughout, and I like it like that. I just have to keep.
I'll just
Grain
have to show you how
particles
to
out of
build
there.
one.
I've built
Oh, here
3
we go.
now, so
So the real problem
Tutorial
there is
time,
not the
ladies and
exit,
gentlemen.
but the entrance.
what?
Well, I mean, the water coming into it, you have to worry about the particles
Okay,
getting
so
into there.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a question on Facebook, and I think this is a really good question, because I think a lot of people that do
not for
brewing the
Trimble.
Grainfather do have this problem. And Kenny Atkins is asking, so how bad is it having grain in the boil? I use a Grainfather, and I usually have some small bits of grain. I try to strain it out, but you can't get it all. I think this is probably one of those things that people really get worked up about. I would strain out as much as you can, but if you have grain in there, you don't sweat it, man.
Yeah, don't.
And
Don't sweat it, yeah.